TV. My name is Frank Fortunato. Today is Friday, January 22nd, 2016. If you want to follow us on Twitter, please go to CATEX TV. Well, residents of Washington, D.C. are bracing themselves now for a powerful winter storm that some forecasters are saying could be historic. It's expected to dump about 2 feet of snow on the Capitol. The federal government is closing down at noon today. The Washington Metro subway system is going to close down late Friday night and remain closed through Sunday. More than 2,000 airplane flights in the region have been canceled for today. All flights in and out of Philadelphia tomorrow are canceled. Major airlines have already canceled flights at Dulles Airport and Reagan National Airport of Washington, D.C. The Mid-Atlantic region is notorious for struggling to cope with winter weather. 2 days ago, Washington received an inch of snow, and there were reports of 9-hour traffic jams. This amount of snow in Washington, D.C. will, in fact, paralyze the city for quite some time. The estimates insofar as economic damage in the eastern part of the country from the snowstorm are expected to be about $1 billion. There's expected to be more than 2 feet of snow in Washington, D.C., a foot to 18 inches in Philadelphia, and 8 inches to a foot in New York City. Here where we are in Princeton, New Jersey, about 40 miles north of Philadelphia, we're expecting about a foot of snow. There was a 6.6 earthquake that struck earlier today off the Pacific coast of Jalisco, Mexico. The quake initially registered 6.9, but was downgraded later to 6.6. It was centered about 134 miles southwest of Tamatlan. There have been no reports of any tsunami or damage or injuries. The International Monetary Fund says inflation in Venezuela will blow past 700% this year. They said that the inflation would more than double in Venezuela in 2016. Apparently right now it's at about 360%. It's going to reach 720%. Last week, Venezuela's central bank published economic data for the first time in more than a year. The bank said that inflation had reached 141% by September of last year. And that's the bank. Goodness knows what the actual real total might be. 44 people have drowned after 3 refugee boats sank earlier today off the coast of Greece. The German Chancellor Angela Merkel is trying to press Turkey into playing a bigger role in resolving Europe's escalating migrant crisis. Turks would seem to be well positioned because they're right there at the scene of the activity. But of course the Turks are going to demand instead, if they're being asked to help resolve Europe's escalating migrant crisis, why can't they be admitted to the European Union? Something the EU has steadfastly refused to do despite paying lip service to it. The Coast Guard of Greece discovered numbers of missing bodies that were floating on the surface. This is one of the highest tolls yet in a drowning that has occurred in the waters off the Greek coast from the refugee crisis. XL Catlin announced earlier today that it's begun the licensing process to establish a reinsurance branch in India. The decision aligns itself with XL's strategy of establishing a presence in emerging and developing markets. The application has been filed with the Insurance Regulatory Development Authority of India. It seeks to establish a reinsurance branch office of XL Insurance Company. It's expected to begin operations later this year. Well, the stock market in the United States is about even right now. Meanwhile, it closed in China earlier today, a little bit higher. It was a relatively muted response to some hints of more policy stimulus coming in Europe and in Japan that prompted a rally yesterday. The Japanese Nikkei jumped about 6%. Brent crude oil went up about 5%. The Shanghai Composite went up about 1.25%. Following a number of days of very sharp losses. On Thursday in Davos, the vice premier of China sought to reassure investors that Beijing would use regulations to prevent volatility in a market that was not yet mature. He said an excessively fluctuating market is a market of speculation, where only the few will gain the most benefit when the most will suffer. Of course, measured by actions rather than words, the attempts by regulators to curb volatility have not been so hot in China. The introduction of a new circuit breaker mechanism that was ditched after only 3 days of violent falls highlight the missteps. There's some good news coming from China. The data that was released by the government this morning says that unemployment was unchanged at 4.05%. Analysts believe, however, that China's real jobless rate is much higher, which is the big problem with China. The statistics and the data released by the government cannot be relied upon, and in fact are not relied upon by any Western financial institutions. A problem indeed. That's the news for today. When we next talk, a number of us, including me, will have shore backs from snow shoveling. Thanks for watching. Have a good weekend, and we'll see you Monday.